Welcome to Maven's Talk series. This session is about SLIs, SLOs and SLA, their user focus and the modern monitoring landscape. Programmed by Digitarati, India's first IT finishing school.
Let me move on. You had this wonderful series, or you're having this wonderful series. You already had what is SRE and how DevOps will integrate or complement with SRE. So let's start from there. Yeah. So we would need some background to start off our conversation today. What do you think is SRE, right? So what is it? Today's buzzword is like site reliability engineering, right? SRE, it's everywhere. Let me try to put a perspective to you. How different it is from traditional application management. I know, many of you are here from a application management techies, to leaders, and who are willing or trying to transform into SRE, and also doing and practicing SRE today. Remember those days we used to be called firefighters, the application management guys or the incident management guys. So, do we really want us to be called firefighters, right? Or we want the system to be called firefighting system, right? So that's a different perspective on application management and SRE. For me, it is more like make the system work for you, right? Rather than use log yourself and trying to optimize or automate the system so that it is reliable and it works for you. Now it's really from a book, right, or from a code perspective. What is SRE? So this is a background that we really need to have. So it is simply an engineering discipline. It is not a profile which is sort of misinterpreted in the market, right? It is an engineering discipline to help companies like us to really achieve our goals. And I've highlighted two words here, which is sustainably achieve an appropriate level of reliability, right? Two really key words, right? Why do I call this as an appropriate level of reliability? We might not need 100% of available systems all the time, right? It depends on the business that we are in. It depends on the services that we are offering. It depends on what is the objective of our company's existence or organization's existence in the market. Now, let me bring an example here, right? A cricket scoring system. Let's assume that we are managing one of the cricket scoring systems. Does it require to be available all 365 days, or it has to be more appropriate and it has to be more fresh in content when the cricket match is going on, right? So there are different aspects to look into it. And also look at your mission critical systems in banking or non-mission critical systems outside banking. It could be from my old banking experience, it could be a check processing, right? It could be a check processing in your domain versus a new movie category which is shown in Netflix, right? Both are doing SRE, both are doing service offerings, but it is very important to understand what is that criticality of the service that we are providing and what is the appropriate level of reliability in our system that we would like to achieve in a sustainable mode, right? So just taking a pause here, if any of you wants to give me a different view or a context from your first couple of sessions. What is SRE? Because this is really our background, our backdrop for the upcoming slides. Okay. The experience, my experience of going through SRE, when I was studying this with the different companies in the industry and how everybody are doing it, simply are we renaming our application management teams to be called as SRE teams, or it is more like we are really transforming our SRE teams, right? So there are different aspects to look into it, which we will see from our examples, because more and more companies benefit from SRE today. So everybody wants to change their application management teams profiles to SRE profiles and start hiring as SRE engineers, right? Now the important aspect to, or important question to ask, okay, boss, I'm doing SRE, or I am an SRE engineer. Now, should I bother about DevOps, or how DevOps and SRE are working together? Yeah. So, if you look into it, for me, or from my experience, DevOps and SRE are complementing each other. Yeah, it is not competing each other. So this is a very interesting slide which I borrowed from DevOps Institute, thanks to them. So if you really see, DevOps is a discipline which implements SRE, right? So some of the policies that we are going to see in the upcoming slides, some of the clear processes or service level indicators and SLOs and SLIs and error budget, how these are defining the policies for the companies, and how these policies are getting implemented by the DevOps, by our tooling and process and people and technology, right? Just to give you a quick example, if we are all deciding what approach do you need to monitor, okay? If SRE is deciding an approach to monitor something, and the DevOps is telling us which tools to use or what are the approved ones to really monitor, right? And if we are talking about resilience and scaling and uptime and all of those things, on the DevOps side, we are talking about how do we really improve the release cadence, or how do we really improve the CI/CD pipeline, and so on, right? So, and you will see when you really experience with it, it is not a two different disciplines which are competing with each other. It is two disciplines which are complementing each other, and the company which successfully transforms this complementary benefits from SRE and DevOps is going to be really successful in implementing SRE. Okay, so now we know what is SRE, what is SRE, and how it is really complementing DevOps, right? How are we really bridging the gap? Now let's go dive into an example which I really wanted to talk about, a movie which I really love. Very interesting movie though. It is about NASA trying to send the rover into Mars, and they have the team of people in Mars. So they have set up everything, and unfortunately, they due to an accident, they had to leave one person in Mars unknowingly because they thought he's dead, and they will be on their way back to Earth, right? Now, for me, the movie starts from this point. When they say that, okay, they came to know that we really need to bring him back because we know that he's alive and he's in Mars, right? And when this movie is released, and when you see their posters and stuff like this, very interesting poster which I have put it here, which caught my attention, which said, "Bring him home," right? Let's go into that this poster a bit later. And they also had multiple scenes in the movie where they showed how this person, Mark Watney, has really survived in Mars, and trying to establish a communication or a feedback system with Earth, and in the end figure out that how do we connect back to the rest of the crew and coming back to the Earth, right? Let's not go too much deep into the movie, but the aspects that I wanted to bring here is that from the off of the time, or from the minute they know that he is alive, the movie shifts its plane to its objective of bringing him home, right? So the movie had an objective that we need to bring him home. And then once you have an objective, you cannot just simply say that, okay, we have an objective. Now we are all working in the way that we wanted to work to achieve an objective. No, not the way that we will go through. You have to really identify what are the key parameters that we need to make to achieve our objective, right? So if you see these particular pictures here, Mark Watney, when he knows that he survived in Mars, first he need to really find out that how much of the food which is left out for him to survive and how long he will survive. So he figures out that he needs to really make his own living there, and he starts monitoring the stuff that he's doing. He starts monitoring the level of rations that he has, and how can he really make more rations available there, and so that he can survive, which becomes one of the important parameter in his own system, right? In our language, in his own platform, this is one of the critical parameters to monitor for, right? And secondly, if you see, he somehow finds a way to establish a connect with a crew in Earth, right? And they are guiding him to do what are the life skills that he needs to do there, right? So it is also important. And the second parameter to understand the whole aspect of the movie was that they have an objective and they had multiple parameters to really contribute to that objective and make that objective successful, right? Now take this an example. Now in our SRE world, right? Every service or every company should have an objective, okay? That what we are providing, and we also need to have particular indicators to really tell us how our objective is being met or not met, and so that we can have a proper contractual agreement with our customers, right? So let's talk about the SLI and SLO and SLA relationship, that we have. I'm going to be going little faster here because this is a not faster but very less of examples here. So SLI, I just wanted to break one myth here. People think it is KPI, and in our age-old application management practices, the KPIs we never cared for, right? And as a techie, I was never knowing that what is a particular KPI that we have put together, and KPIs was very much standalone back then. Now in SRE, the SLIs are really indicating the critical parameters of your service, right? And it is a key measurement that we really have to measure in our, banking service, or the, cricket live score that we talked about, or in the travel service that we are giving, and stuff like this, right? And SLI has to be measured in terms of a fraction or a percentage. Now let me bring an example here. If somebody comes and say that, hey, we run a system and our system process 1,000 successful requests or 1,000 requests, right? You will say that, oh, amazing. Now, what does this 1,000 mean when you only say 1,000, right? You have to really say, I have received 2,000 requests and I have only successfully done 1,000 requests out of that. Then the fraction really goes to 50% of our success rate, right? So SLI has to be really compared with the total events and not only with a successful event. This is a clear one of the mistakes that all of us do when we are trying to set up our monitoring systems, trying to go into our implementations of SRE. We do always that, okay, we put an absolute number, okay? Currently, what is our CPU? Okay, 70%, 80%. And we always need to put a relation there so that we are not taking only the absolute number, right? In the end, what is an SLI? We are here talking about reliability, right? The whole topic is about reliability, and the SLIs can be availability. Like for example, if you are running a ATM service system backend, right? You are about availability. It is about how your system is available all 365 days in 24/7, right? If you are running, for example, a medical monitoring system, right? If your service is being used in the operation theaters, it is about latency. Can you fast, can you make your system work faster without less latency so that the data can be used better in the medical center, right? And if you are using, for example, a check transaction system again, when you are processing your checks, if you don't measure your error rate, right? You will be missing, let's say 5%, 10% of your checks, which is a big deal for a banks, isn't it? So error rate can be one of the SLI, right? And durability, blah, 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 right? Response time and transaction per second, all of these wonderful things can be an SLI, right? Now, very, very important aspect. I wanted to take a pause and really make a point clear that these parameters are wonderful, wonderful when you look at it from a technology team's perspective or a techie's perspective. But I insist here, it has to be from the customer perspective. It has to be from the user perspective, right? So when you set up your SLI, you really need to ask a question: what it means for the customer. Does it make a difference, right? So once we have this SLI, it's a service level indicator. We have to really ask that second question. Okay, I understand now what is SLI. Now, how do I get one, right? When I'm setting it up, when I'm setting my SRE practice in my company, how do I start from scratch, right? Clearly you have to identify the useful or the critical system boundary or parameter in your platform. Okay, so first is the identification part, and then you have to really ask the question, brainstorm about that. Okay, what it means for the customer. What does customer is going to do? How much of the CPU that we are running in, right? What does customer is going to do? How much of the disk space we are running in? All he cares about is his service, right? So probably he is interested in how much of his requests are getting serviced in a successful manner than knowing a CPU or any other systematics, right? So once you answered these two questions, start measuring that SLI metrics, right? So to baseline, right? One interesting point here. Every time we go and ask an engineer, right? What do you think we should be here? What should be our parameter? And every engineer answers that, oh, our parameter should be 100%, right? We really cannot be lower than 100%. I beg to differ. We first have to measure on a baseline and then maybe track the SLI over a period. Then really understand, is it possible to achieve 100% over a period? Right? Because if you go and commit a customer that I will be achieving 100% of my performance, right? It may be a one-day thing. It may be a one-week thing, right? So please do your baselining and please track your SLI over period and then fine tune it, right? And if you see, this becomes a cycle. This is the fundamental aspect of setting up your SLI, right? Your service level indicators, which feeds your SLO, right? For example, you would already know what job that you are in or what service that you are offering. What is the objective that you want to bring to your customer, right? So once you know that, you can really go from here and, the SLI actually transforms your SLO. And input one single word. Objective is about time bound, right? So you have an SLI. If you attach a time to that, then you have an objective, right? So to give a very simple example, we already talked about what is an SLI. Successful events, right? Divided by the total events or valid events, right? This is our SLI. If you convert this SLI into over a period, then it becomes an objective, right? So now you say that, okay, over a specific time. I will give you an example. We give a commitment to the customer that 99% of our request will be completed in 5 milliseconds in 24 hours. Right? And now if you see, this is very specific. You are measuring the latency or the throughput or the speed of this request. Okay, we will finish within 5 milliseconds. And you are also saying that in every 24 hours, right? You cannot say that, okay, in 24 hours, I will finish one in 5 milliseconds and rest is gone, right? So it's a very clear definition of how your SLI is driving your objective. And this objective can be your organization's objective or can be your service objective, depends on the service that you are offering, right? Netflix can come and say that, okay, we will be up all the time, and every time you click a movie, the movie will open in like 1 second or 2 seconds. I'm just bringing up some example, right? Or Crick Live or any of the cricket scoring systems can come and say that, okay, the freshness of the data is few milliseconds, right? So this is what we are measuring. This is what we are measuring as a SLO or SLI. Now you could ask me, okay, I have an SLI, I have an SLO. Now what does it really mean to have an SLA, right? I bet none of you here would not be knowing about SLA. Everybody in the industry knows a word called SLA. That's the most probably abused word in the industry. That, oh, what's the SLA that we are operating in, right? For me, for the context of this webinar, SLA is simply an agreement, nothing more, right? SLA is simply an agreement with your customer that what you are offering, that what is the objective of your service, and maybe with some added financial benefits, right? You could simply go and say that 99% of the request will complete in 5 milliseconds. If not, you get X% as a penalty. Okay. Now this is a quick relationship between SLI and SLO and SLA. So we quickly go on the relationship part of these three items, SLI and SLO and SLA. These relations are interrelated. I keep giving examples of what was it in application management era, right? This was like some customer teams goes and commit an SLA, and myself as an application manager, I don't care about that, right? Because they have not checked with me. That is why in SRE, it has always been driven by the technical teams that you drive your own SLI, you drive your own SLO, and then thereby you are giving an SLA to the company, right? So you see there is a paradigm shift here on the teams working in silos and teams working in collaboration here, right? Now these three relationship gives us a new term in SRE, which is called error budget, right? Maybe for some of you this is a new term, and maybe for some of you this is not just a new term, but we are using this in our day-to-day life, but we just simply don't call it as error budget, right? But in my experience, I've seen some of the startups are very effectively using this error budget, and they really call this as error budget, and because they are offering all microservices, right? They are offering very small fragmented services, and it is easy for them to call it that way. Now, let me explain what is really a error budget here. So basically, you have agreed on a service level objective of 70%. Okay. Now this green bar here denotes that you have already achieved this 70%. Okay, which means that hey, you are on top of your agreed SLO with the customer, right? And this second case, you have agreed on a different service about 90% SLO. Okay, and the green bar means you have already achieved this 90%, right? Now you could ask, hey, what about this 30% left? What about this 10% left, right? So in common or hybrid IT companies like us, there is a pain in the neck when there is a service goes down. Majority of the time, we say that, oh, the platform went down, we cannot do anything about it. Okay, the application teams doesn't really bother. It's a common platform issue. The storage went down. Okay, the network had an issue, and some of the parts crashed. Right, all the common IT problems. And I'm not sure if you are practicing Scrum teams and stuff like this. And every time you go to a PO and prioritize this particular common IT problem, the PO says, oh, but we have a new feature to implement, right? And you as a techie is always a frustrated person saying that, okay, but if we cannot improve our reliability, we cannot go to market that often, that fast, right? So this is why Google has actually introduced this error budget, and now many of the companies are using it today, saying that, okay, this 30%, once you have achieved your SLO, this 30% or 10% is called error budget. You could very well use this time to really fix your common IT problems or common platform issues, or common errors or bugs and stuff like this, right? Or any failed requests that you may have. Now, I'm just going some of these examples. A failed request can be anything from a bug to a common IT issue. Right. So the error budget is usually used, these percentages usually used in your next Scrum or next iteration to prioritize one of your common IT problems so that your system becomes reliable. Okay. You are really focusing on the reliability than the release cadence. Right. Now you could ask me, hey, I have achieved my SLO. Why I should be bothered about fixing somebody's problem, right? Now, please remember, we are in SRE, we are talking about your service. Now, our service is a single service which customer is experiencing. Now, customer doesn't care if our platform team has had an issue, right? A customer is barely tolerant these days, right? When you go and say that, oh, sorry, but our storage systems went down, right? Immediately the client will answer, but I'm paying you for my service. Now it is you who has to manage your liability inside. Now this is driving the whole market, our whole industry and the whole ecosystem today. So this is why it is important to understand error budget. So error budget is nothing but 1 minus availability. That's what the math says. But if you're having a 99.9 SLO and that 0.1% is the error budget. Right. I hope this is a little clearer because this was one of the term which is getting introduced in the SRE, but others are sort of common ones. Why are these important? Okay, this is important. If you ask me straightforward, this is important because you need to run your business with the data and not with subjective thinking. Because many of the leaders I hear saying them that, but I thought we have a very stable system. Oh, my confidence level is very high with the system. Please do not do this mistake, right? So this is, we are measuring a system because we wanted to do everything based on data and not on assumption. Because this is one of the key aspects, or we learned when we were migrating or when we were really implementing SRE. This is one of the key aspect, right? Because the mindset of we always had a stable system, we have issues here and there. This here and there is a problem, right? So we need to really have a common ground and common language. That is why we are measuring. That is why it is important, and to drive clarity into our process. And also to drive clarity, what to monitor basically. And that brings into our next section of monitoring. Now we have all these SLIs and SLOs and error budget, which defines what you need to do, which is your policy. And monitoring define how do you really implement it, right? Basically, once you have a monitoring established, what to monitor, are you only monitoring the system request or server request and the server CPU, which have it in the background, which is like a sort of a typical traditional monitoring, or you started monitoring your logins, you started monitoring your transaction per second, you started monitoring your latency, you started monitoring your sessions handling, and then stuff like this. Right. So I'm not going to go through this, quick caveat of what is monitoring. We all know what is monitoring, right? But why do we really need to monitor? This monitoring, again, an abused term in the IT industry, is really evolving right now, right? We do not suggest to monitor the standalone systems anymore. We wanted to monitor a cluster of nodes. We wanted to monitor at a service level. We wanted to monitor to analyze the long-term trends. We wanted to create business analytics out of it. And we wanted to create a nice little dashboards which can tell us what are the problems and where is the problems, and also to alert us when there is really need to alert. Okay. I can relate since all of you are from the same background on the application management area. There were times that every day somebody was getting waken up for the on-call, right? Because we had some alerts which are wrongly set up. And this alert is triggering an IR. This alert is triggering a avoidable on-call to say, right? So which we will talk in the upcoming slides, which is an aspect which is evolving today in the trend. How you need to really make your monitoring sophisticated so that you don't make these mistakes. Understanding monitoring landscape. Please don't do the standalone monitoring setups anymore. Okay, we have to move on to a service level monitoring, or we have to move on to instance level monitoring, and or there is also another set of aspects which is called black box monitoring and white box monitoring, which is more to do with observability, which itself is a separate session, right? So in the service level or instance level monitoring, let me go a little bit of zoom here. In the modern cloud applications, right? Assume that these are all our front-end interfaces, and we have a load balancer, and you have different services. Like it's assume it's in the shopping or a retail service. You have different nodes which are providing different services. What it says is that you group those nodes which provide the same service, and configure your monitoring on an objective oriented way than this particular server, that particular server on a standalone way. Okay, so that is not going to help anymore on the SRE, because monitoring is more getting into business ethics, and by monitoring only single or standalone systems, we cannot make sense of the experience, what is the user is experiencing, or we cannot do any artificial intelligence level of auto healing and stuff like this, right? So if you are in the mission of making your system completely robust and reliable, and you want to change your systems from a firefighting to a auto healing or fault tolerant systems, I think we need to change our monitoring in the first place, right? Please move on to the service level monitoring so that we know exactly which service is caused, right? And the instance level monitoring, on the other hand, it's more of a traditional monitoring of individual instances. In some cases, this is useful when you are doing at a platform level, at below at an infrastructure level, but not at a service side, right? Usually, these instance level monitoring are used for the diagnostic, meaning when you're having a incident or an issue that you need to really troubleshoot, right? So that these are two main types that every company or every startup today are using. Not so much on the black box and white box monitoring, but this is whenever you require a code change, if you want to monitor something, or if your APM engine wants to monitor some of your application parameters, that require code change. It does white box monitoring, which goes more into the terms of observability and all those things from the system design perspective itself. So, which is probably out of the scope for today's session. So I may skip that. Quickly, maybe at the last set of our webinar, build your monitoring, right? Today, this is one of the area which is super crowded. You have so many tools which are available to monitor various parts of your architecture, right? It could be for system monitoring, could be for time series database, which holds up all the data and process it like analytic, right? For web monitoring, for HTTP requests and so on. So a company or an organization, sometimes it is also required or necessity to make multiple tools part of our monitoring system. But my request here, folks, is build a simple but reliable solution, right? And also create a readable dashboard. A common problem or a common example here is that you show your wonderful dashboard and the manager or a leader or the techie itself asking, okay, what does it mean? Okay. If that question is coming, I would say we failed creating a dashboard. Our dashboard should already tell us what is wrong. Our dashboard should already tell us where are we in terms of the status, right? What is right as well. Now, when you are building a monitoring, alerting is part of it as well, right? So a monitoring system without alerts is probably going to be not much useful, right? You can say it is there. We have a fantastic Prometheus designed monitoring system with Grafana dashboards, but unfortunately we don't have alerts configured, right? Which is of no use. So I would say when you are picking up all these, or when you are setting it up, these monitoring scapes, use the 4 golden signals by default, or it depends on your service as well, right? The signals are like latency or traffic or errors or throughput, right? Which we talked in the previous slides. Now a sample, a new age monitoring landscape is more like, these days we use a time series database everywhere to collect everything on the metric and log storage. This is just not only about analyzing your garbage collectors or any of the thread dumps and heap dumps and so on, but we collect on a time series mode nowadays, right? So we put everything together so that we can create a real analytics platform so that we can make the system know about the system, right? So once you are successful, making these clear indications from the patterns from the past, we can feed these inputs into our fault tolerant systems. We can feed these inputs to your auto healing system. So automatically it really when there is a incident, it picks up these alerts and then it goes and fixes the incident by itself, right? Now, spending on the four golden signals. This is what the book says, but I would say just go beyond. Yeah, some of the service that you might offering might need more than that. So pick up what is useful and what is needed for the objective that you are committing to the customer, right? So that is our the four golden signals, and unfortunately I won't be able to show the full-fledged architecture here, but just as a block diagram, a monitoring workflow, and how can you really set this up, right? I'm using an example of Prometheus with Grafana. What we have experienced in many other companies. This is also open source. That gives a bit of flexibility and also a lot of use cases around. So the use case that we put, right, you put all the monitored system which need to be monitored and all the instance level or the service level apps, and also scrape that periodically, right? And Prometheus collects the data and keeps it with us. And Prometheus also has an alert manager, which is sort of a plugin or within the Prometheus itself, right? And since Prometheus only can offer a very light visualization, not even visualization, it's only a query, we have used Grafana as our dashboard tool to really query the Prometheus and visualize the way that we have described in the previous slides. And also you could also push your alert manager alerts into your alerting system, be it mobiles or your chatting tools or your any of the service management tools that you are using, right? And the alert translator is probably used only when required. If you want to translate some of the alerts into your company's nomenclature, you could do that. So a very simple but effective monitoring workflow can be like this, right? And then you can also get creative inside. You can get creative on the visualization part. You can get creative on how you are collecting the data itself and how you are processing that data, right? So that is also one important aspect. Now, last bit here is alerting, right? Let's think about those times when you get 30 alerts for the same issue, right? You have a file system full and you get 30 different alerts, and possibly these 30 different alerts triggered 5 different on calls and created five times you wake up and check, okay, this is the same thing, right? The alerting area in the IT, in the SRE is evolving as well, right? Create smart alerts, right? Add multiple alerts to define a rule, right? Yes, then you basically, instead of waking up 5 times, or instead of you fixing up 5 times, you're going to only do that once, because your system is monitoring all the threshold and for a particular time and checking the pattern as well, right? For example, we have not very recently, sometime back, we have defined an alert which says that every time a pod is getting rebooted within 5 minutes or 10 times within 5 minutes, I would need an alert, right? Otherwise, I don't need. Because if it is getting reboot 10 times in 5 minutes, then I know something is not okay, then I need to go and check that. right? So be creative, and again, please attach yourself to the SLI and see it from a customer perspective. What does it mean to the customer, right? And how I can create smart alerts, and how I can really group the alerts based on the component or severity or region or the service that I am offering, which region I'm offering. And also you could send this notification to different channels. Unfortunately still the email alerts are coming in, but majority of our systems have evolved from the email alerts, but we have moved more into the alerts taking care of the fault tolerant systems itself, right? So that is where we have moved in. I think that is the whole story of how your SRE is evolving into DevOps, and then how your SLIs and SLOs and SLAs defining a policy into your company. And once you have the policy set, and how you really need to do the monitoring setups and alerting, and what are the various landscapes in the industry available today. Just as a takeaway, what we have seen so far today in the last 1 hour was the service level indicators. We have seen service level objectives. We have seen service level agreement and error budget. Combining that, so these 4 parameters creates your SRE policy into your company, like what sort of things that you need to monitor, what sort of parameters that you need to really set, what is your objective for the group if you do not have one yet, right? And do we want to be called as a firefighters, or do we want the system to be called as firefighting system, right? And then we have seen monitoring, we have seen 4 golden signals, and alerting, and how these items are defining your reliability of the system.